was a computer glitch.
Okay. Live.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. My name is Brandy Cannon-Williams. I'm the undergraduate advisor for creative writing. Thank you so much for coming. This is a wonderful turnout. I hope you help yourself to some cookies at the back. There's also cards and pens. One item that I want to point out is that we're live streaming right now. So students will not be shown, but your voices will be recorded if you ask a question. If you're uncomfortable with that, there's some blank note cards at the back. You can write a question on a note card and just leave it at the front table and we'll grab it from there. All right, Nancy Lee is our undergraduate chair. She'll be talking about the portfolio requirements. And we have John Vigna and Sharita Warner, who are going to talk about genres and just answer some general program information. As I mentioned, I'm the undergraduate advisor, so I'm the first point of contact for questions about the program, if you're in the program, or if you're applying. I'm happy to answer emails or set up a meeting with you at any point. So, the structure of the major program. So we're a fine arts program in the Faculty of Arts. It's a closed studio program, which means that the majors take the 400 level courses that are restricted just to the majors. It's small workshops of no more than 12 students. And the purpose is to help each other develop your work by providing technique-based feedback. The requirements are 36 credits of these workshop courses, which usually works out to about 12 courses. And the program is designed to be completed over 2 years, so a maximum of 3 workshop courses per term over 4 terms, but you can certainly extend this if you want to do part-time studies or if you go on an exchange program. So eligibility. The good news is that there is no GPA requirement. What we look for 3 things. We look for UBC status. So for current UBC students, you don't need to worry about that. For students who are planning to transfer to UBC or do a second degree, you need to apply to UBC Enrollment Services admissions by January 15th before you submit your application to creative writing. We also look that just to confirm that you've completed a 200 Creative Writing 200 or equivalent. It's an introductory level creative writing course. That's the only course prerequisite that we have. And lastly, we look to see that you will have third year status as of September 2020. September 2020 is our next intake. And third year status generally means that you will have completed 54 credits or 2 years of study. So a lot of you will be in your second year of study, planning to complete your second year by May. So the application process, we're quite a selective program. We'll be accepting applications from January 2nd to February 29th for next September. We only have 1 application cycle per year, and late applications will not be considered. Please review the guidelines on our website. It goes into a lot of detail about what is required for the portfolio and what you can expect throughout the process. There are 4 components to the application. The first is an online form, which you can access through our website once it becomes live. This form will just ask basic questions about your name, your student number, what genres you intend on studying, and that sort of thing. You'll also need to provide a cover letter and 2 samples of your writing in 2 distinct genres. Nancy will talk about the cover letter and portfolios in a little bit. Once the applications are reviewed for eligibility and completeness, they will be circulated to faculty readers who will then assess and rank the applications. And then the decisions should be made by May 2020, and everyone will be notified at that point. All right, portfolio requirements, Nancy.
I'll start with the cover letter. These are the 2 main components of your application. Everybody wants to know, like, is there something secret I can put in the cover letter, like a secret code? No, there's no secret. We just want to get a sense of your personality, your interests, who you are as a writer, what you're interested in terms of the program, like what about the program feels like it's going to work for you and be good for you. We're a multi-genre program, so if you have interests in various genres, you can let us know sort of what your experience and connections are there. We're also looking for a diverse community of writers, so writers from different backgrounds who work in different areas, and that's what we try to sort of balance out each year. So we don't want to end up with all poets.
What? Sounds amazing.
Serena's the poetry teacher. So, just give some thought about really just representing yourself. We want to know who you are and get a real sense of your interests. Now, one thing that we do look at very carefully is how much care you put into the letter. So make sure you do things like spelling check, grammar check, making sure that your sentences make sense, those sort of things, that you're communicating clearly. That's important. In terms of the portfolio, everybody wants to know what makes a great portfolio. So the first thing I'll tell you is that the portfolio is read by several faculty members. So it's not just a decision process with a single faculty member. It actually goes through several faculty members, and the faculty members often represent different genres. So what we're looking for is a real sense of your creative voice in your work, a sense that you care about the writing that you've submitted. So it shouldn't be something that you wrote the night before, because we can tell. So it's something that you've really worked on, that you've put some time into, that you're proud of. Submit your best work. Today a student asked me, can you include work in your portfolio that you've actually workshopped in a class? Absolutely you can. And that's what you want to think about, your most mature work, the work that really represents the strongest writer that you are and matters the most to you. Pay close attention to the guidelines, the portfolio guidelines, and the page requirements. We're not so concerned about certain types of stories or whether you fit into a narrow definition of genre. If you have particular genre interests, you can show those in your portfolio. But we do care about those page requirements. So do not submit your 200-page novel. It will not convince anyone that you should be in the program. Because we have a diverse range of faculty reading the portfolios, we cannot have faculty review your work before you submit an application. But I do recommend that if you've got writing peers who you're working with in class now, or who you know through a writing group, it's a great idea to get some feedback from them and to work with them on your submissions. But instructors themselves cannot review your work before you use it in an application. You can definitely submit work that you wrote a while ago. That's not a big deal. We don't, it doesn't have to be written this year or anything like that, but just submit your strongest work. What you can't submit is collaborative work. So if you co-wrote a story with other students or a screenplay with other students, we don't accept that. We only accept work that you are the sole author of. And our best advice is start working on your portfolio early. Like, what's the submission date? January? Mm-hmm. Start now would be good. You got lots of time over December maybe, where you can go back to the creative work and look at it again and again. We don't have quotas for particular genres, so there's no need to think about strategy. It's not like you're more likely to get in if you submit in a certain genre. That's not how it works. We take the strongest portfolios, and that's pretty much it. So don't feel like, well, I'm going to apply in this genre because I don't think anyone will apply in that genre. It's not how it works. And I think that's it. John, did you have any additional? You gave this talk last year, so I'm just wondering. These are your notes, I think. Maybe.
There was already a hand that came up here.
Oh,
so-
yes. What was the question?
Sorry, so like, what if the work you've submitted is not, for the purpose of that, for the application, like when your instructor looked at the material, it wasn't intended for this application, but then it was bad and you want to use it for it? So like, can you still do that?
I'm sorry. I'm not sure I understand the question. Like, you wrote it for something else?
Yes. So like, you were saying like you cannot show your work to instructor in creative writing
Yes.
prior to application if you want to use the work for the application process. But what if the intention of showing the article to your instructor was never to apply for this?
Yes, like you were in a class or something and you got feedback from an instructor, that's fine. Absolutely, yeah, that's fine. It's just that you can't go to an instructor and say, could you look at my portfolio application for the BFA program? We can't do that, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I know you want to have a couple different genres for the application. For one of the genres, I had a question, like if one of your genres was writing for young adults and
Yeah.
children, for the purposes of filling the the page limit, like I think it's 20 pages, right? Could you submit one picture book and one, young adult novel, for example? Like, could they be, if they both fall under YA?
YA, yes, I think that's fine, isn't it? Yeah.
As long as it doesn't exceed the number of.
Yes, as long as it doesn't exceed the
Like
number of
if it's,
pages.
Yeah, like the first couple chapters of a novel,
Yeah.
and then like a picture book, completely like.
That would be fine, yeah.
Okay.
And what I would do is just make sure to label it so
Yeah.
that there's no confusion.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that would be under your YA, and
Yeah.
then you have, your
Yeah.
science fiction.
Whatever, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Need to
We
repeat
just
the
need to
questions.
repeat that question about the published. Can you submit published work? Yes.
Yes, you can submit published
We
work.
just have to repeat the question.
Oh, we have to repeat the questions. Oh,
Just in case the mic doesn't.
okay. I have to repeat the questions. I hope I don't have to go back in time and do all of them. Okay.
that's good.
There. Do TAs count as instructors? Oh, well, for the purpose of the application, yes. So can you go a TA for your course and say, can you read my portfolio and give me some feedback? No, you can't do that. Yes, the TAs are supposed to only give feedback on the work that you're doing in the course. So you may have gotten feedback that way. That's fine. Yeah. There, I'll come to the slide in just a second. Yeah.
This is a technical question for like classic requirements, but do you need your academic writing requirements in order to be third year standing for the program?
Do you need your academic, this is the question for you, do you need your academic writing requirement in order to be third year standing?
Good question.
That is a good question, and you know what? I'm actually not sure. I think that's a requirement of the Bachelor of Arts, and not a Bachelor of Fine Arts. So I think that if you transferred from Bachelor of Arts to Bachelor of Fine Arts, you would no longer have that requirement, is my understanding. But why don't you follow up with me via email, and I'll look into that and get a definite answer for you.
There we go, you had a question.
Yeah, just to clarify, Randy, the 4 components for online form, cover letter, and then the 2 genres?
That's right.
Okay, good. And I wanted to also ask, if you're not a classified student like me, you've done programs before, so I don't need to apply for the basic admission to UBC if I already got that.
I think you would need to apply as a second degree student if you're not currently in a UBC program.
If I'm not in the program,
Yeah.
apply as a,
Second degree student. And that application, I think, is January 15th, 2020.
January 15th.
Yeah.
And what do they require?
You would need to check with Enrollment Services admissions for their requirements.
At the back there.
What does being a minor in creative writing?
I'm sorry?
What does a minor in creative writing look like?
Yeah.
What
so
does a minor in creative writing look
So
like?
the minor in creative writing is, I believe it's 30 credits, 12 credits of 200 level, and then 18 credits of 300 level courses. Yeah.
This is all, I think the details are on our website,
The
right?
details are on our website. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What are the acceptable genres that you can submit?
What are the genres? Do we have a list of them?
We do. So genres are, we've been talking a lot about genres, and we have Tariq Hussein and Sharita
Tariq, come
Warner to
up.
talk about.
Bring a chair.
I'll just take a couple more questions. There were a couple of hands that I saw. Nobody else? Scanning, 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 scanning. Oh, there.
Can I apply as a third year student?
Can you apply as a third year student?
Yeah, absolutely. Third year, or a lot of people apply in their second year because they'll have third year standing by the start date. But yeah, third year is absolutely fine. Yeah, in the next year will be fine. Yeah.
Are
So-
you eligible to apply if you haven't taken the 200 or equivalent this term?
Yeah. Yeah,
As
as
long
long
as
as you
you're
take
enrolled in
it,
it.
as long as you're enrolled in it for next term, that's fine.
Yes.
What are the equivalent courses for creative writing?
It
What
would
are the-
essentially be any of the Creator Writing 200 level courses.
You nailed 209, so you're in good shape.
Any others?
What are the application fees?
Oh, what are the application fees, Brand? Did you know?
Well, for second degree studies, I'm not sure, you'd have to check with Enrollment Services, and there is no application fee for Creative Writing.
Yay. No fees.
Do you need references for the BFA?
Do you need references?
No, not for the major application. You may need it as a second degree student or a transfer student.
So for,
Oh, sorry. Oh, we'll start here.
For the children's book genre, can you put illustrations and drawings in it?
I
For the children's application, can you put illustrations? I mean, you can certainly put illustrations.
Yeah, illustrations, you can include them and they don't count towards the page requirement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
For the dramatic writing for screen and dramatic for stage, what exactly do you mean by dramatic writing? Is that
It's our archaic course naming. We basically mean screenplay and stage play.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's not.
it could be like
It can be a comedy.
Okay.
If that's what you're asking. Yes.
Yes.
Poetry's at the. How did that happen?
Poetry's at the
did
top.
You have this list?
Lyrics at
Hi.
the bottom.
I just wanted to clarify, so if you take like 201, so you write 201, you want to take 200?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, wow, okay.
201, 209, 208, 207, all the 200 numbers.
Well, we
right?
should clarify that you don't have to have taken 200 in order to apply for the BFA program, but in order to get a minor, I think you do have to.
Oh, yes, for the minor program, you do need to take creative writing 200 plus
Yeah.
3 additional 200
Yes.
level courses.
So if what you want to do is apply to the BFA and you've already taken a 200 level creative writing course, that meets the creative writing 200 requirement.
That's right.
But if you are wanting to get a minor, you do need to make sure you've got 200. Yes.
What does new media encompass? Like aside from
What does new media encompass? Can anyone here answer that question? None of us teach
The
new media.
internet.
I mean, the types of things they do in new media are podcasting, web series, game,
Video.
VR scripts,
Vlogging.
things like that. You can always, if you have a specific thing you're interested in including in your application and you're not sure whether it falls into the genre, you can send Brandy an email and she can check directly with that genre instructor. Yes.
Is there any way to major specifically in one of those genres, like becoming a screenwriting major, or is that interdisciplinary?
So that's a great question. Is there any way to major in just one of the genres? We're a multidisciplinary program, so of the credits that you have to take, there's a requirement, right,
Yeah.
that you have to take.
So you need to take a minimum of 1 course in at least 4 genres. And you can take a maximum of 4 courses in each course code. So you can take 4 poetry classes, you can take 4 fiction classes, but no more than that.
Yeah, and the degree will be a BFA in creative writing.
That's
It
right.
won't be genre specific.
So there's no way to like major specifically?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess following up on that new media question from before, would something along the lines of like a radio play format podcast fall under new media then in that case?
So would a radio play podcast fall under new media? I think, yeah, or it could also fall under dramatic writing.
I thought we have a
Because right now I'm taking a class that's writing for stage and radio.
Yes.
And then I saw that was just for stage, and then you mentioned the new media, and I'm like, okay, what does it fall under now? Like,
That's a good question. Brandy, do you know the answer to
I
that
don't,
question?
unfortunately. I think it's a bit of a gray area. Maybe.
Yeah, we could maybe, again, you could send Brandy an email and we could just double check with the
Yeah.
instructor. I mean,
Yeah. Probably leave it up to the instructor.
we'd leave it up to
and
the instructor just
specialist
to let you know.
discussions.
Yeah, yeah. At the back.
The level 200 creative writing course, does that mean that any level 200 creative writing course you're taking, or is it a specifically creative writing 200?
So again, the question about the 200 level requirement. So for the purposes of this application, if you've got any 200 level creative writing course, it will cover you for the 200 level requirement. But we need to be clear that if you're trying to get a minor in creative writing, you do need to take the course called Creative Writing 200. Any other questions? Did you guys, while they're thinking about more questions, did you guys want to talk about your genres?
Tarek. Hit it.
Okay.
Are you going to sing?
Tarek brought his guitar.
You have to take the class for that.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, I guess you figured out I teach lyric songwriting, so yeah. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Come to join us in that class. We do lots of fun stuff. You get an opportunity to try your hand at writing some songs, even if you aren't a musician. I know that's always a bit of a deterrent for people, but don't let it be. There are ways around that. If you're interested in song and song form, we can still achieve lots in that class, and you have a chance to, as I say, try out writing songs, maybe even do a little performing. There's some fun opportunities. I have next week, my class is actually going to go to CITR radio station to perform their songs on air. So I know that might also sound scary to some folks. Pretty fun opportunity. So yeah, that's my genre, lyric and songwriting. If you want to know any more information, you can always get in touch with me. I don't know how to give you my email, but there's probably just go on the website,
yep.
right? Yeah, just go on the website or stop me. And some of you are in my other classes, I know, so just feel free to come up and ask me about it.
Of your students who are going to CITR next week, how
Yeah.
many were like seasoned musicians when they started taking your course?
There's 7 people in that class, seasoned musicians. I don't. most of them not. I would say.
Yeah.
So they might play a little bit. Some people submitted songs a cappella for their workshopping purposes. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Is that lyric forms, I suppose, meant by that?
Yeah. Lyric forms, exactly. Yeah.
So like production value for the lyrics, like songs counted in?
Is the production value counted in the form? No, I mean, we talk a bit about production and sound of songs and what that means, you know, in terms of how people receive the message of the song. But I'm fine with people doing GarageBand recordings on their computers, or some people do things on their phone. I think as long as we can get an idea of what you're trying to do with the work, it doesn't have to be, you know, recorded at Bryan Adams' studio or something like that. Yeah.
Sharita? Hi, I'm Sharita. I teach poetry, and I teach a kind of a weird workshop called Hybrid Forms. It's weird because it's not all workshop. We do lots of other things in that space, but this is an opportunity for you, once you've had a bit of multidisciplinary sort of training in genres, for you to kind of blend some of your favorites together in a piece of writing. Lots of wonderful pieces have been written in this class by members of the BFA program, so that's really an exciting opportunity. But I also wanted to give you a sense of, a kind of poetic sense of what you might take away from the program in general. Sometimes you want to know something about applicability, like what will this BFA thing turn out to be for me in my life? And so this is my poetic interpretation of this, which is to say we practice a lot of skills that you might not get to practice in other programs. One of those skills is this art of attention. So to pay attention to things, to be attentive and observant, is a wonderful skill to practice and pays off multiple ways in your life. But to hone in on this skill is one of the things that we practice in the program. Another thing that we practice that I don't know if it happens in other, programs is using your imagination. I think that's a really amazing kind of thing to draw on that in other courses I'm not sure if that happens very often. The imagination is such an incredible resource, muscle kind of thing. So that's very poetic for you. And then the third thing is connection. Not only will you connect with one another, because we're in really nice small seminar classes, but you figure out how the thing you want to express connects with someone else. And that's really invaluable. It's something that you really can't do on your own. You can't figure that out for yourself. And I know that a lot of you are in classes already where you're doing that, you're sharing your work. That's just such a huge thing. I think connection is so important in the world right now, and in just this human capacity. So yeah, BFA program for the win.
There's a question there.
Is it possible to do an independent study within the BFA program? Like say write a thesis?
It's a great question. So is it possible to do an independent study within the BFA program?
Not at the moment.
Yeah, not at the moment. Not thesis, not at the undergraduate level, no.
We're thinking about it.
But not for this next.
But yeah, we just at the moment it takes kind of years of planning to make a major program change. So At the moment, it's pretty much workshop
The workshop
focused.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the class structure like? Is it mostly workshop or are there like exams?
What's the class structure like? Is it mostly workshop? Are there exams? I can safely say there are no exams.
There's a poetry exam. No, I'm kidding.
The focus of most of the courses is primarily student-generated creative work in a workshop setting. Many of the instructors now supplement that with readings, exercises, projects. You might be doing a presentation in your class, a group project, things like that. But really the focus is on creative work and finding ways to build your capacity to create creative work. So no tests, no academic essays as far as I know. Do you have an academic essay?
A lyric? No,
No.
we'll let it go.
But if that sounds easy, I should add that you're going to be taking multiple workshops at the same time and having to produce work in all of them, which is not easy. And also you're having to respond to other people's creative work. So we shouldn't make it sound like it's easy. It's not easy. A lot of students find it a little bit stressful. But the idea is that it helps you grow in various ways, having those deadlines. John, did you want to talk about fiction?
Fiction, yeah. So one of the things I think is great coming from any of you that are taking courses in the minor program, especially what I've noticed in anyone who's taken fiction classes, particularly because that's the genre I work in, is I really notice this tremendous sort of spike in skill acquisition and execution of what you're doing with the work. So when you enter in 209, we talk about this in our classes. Some of my students are in here today. We know that we're kind of working in this area where all this stuff is brand new to you and you're really feeling kind of clumsy as you're kind of working through it, and to sort of stay patient with that process, because all writing is a process, right? But what we really notice in going from like something like that where you're all at right now, when you come to the BFA program, having taken a broad range of courses, if at all possible, is that we see that the writing just improves so dramatically. It's shocking to us as instructors still. And I think a lot of it has to do with some of the things that Shrita was talking about with attention, connection, and just sort of being aware of like how you're working within different forms. I think another part is that you're working in different forms all the time, even though, so I know a number of us that are in the fiction class now are also taking poetry, taking new media, taking screen, taking writing for dramatic forms, whatever that one is, AJ. Those types of things. And so it all starts coming together at the BFA, because now you've gone through massive classes, which most of you have experienced, the large lecture things, into this workshop sitting around a table. They're not TA supported, they're just working strictly with one of us or other instructors. 12 of us talking about writing deeper work and sort of reading with intention, these sorts of things. So the improvement that goes on at this point is enormous. So for me, it's like, Shrita, you're talking about like what the importance is of a BFA, if you need to sell it to someone in your family.
Yeah.
As the idea is like, what am I going to do with a writing degree? And the thing I like to sort of think about is like, basically, if you look at the stats on finding jobs today right now, and I don't have the exact stats right now, but it's easy to find with a quick Google search, but there are sort of 2 or 3 major sort of skills that employers are all looking for, regardless of occupation, right? It's not being the smartest in your class at a certain thing. It's like, can you write, can you read, and can you speak, right? And these are, and not just like, can you speak, but like the ability to articulate, right? And so these are the things that you're doing all the time in the BFA. You're talking about each other's work, you're writing work, you're reading work, and it's sort of, it smuggles in this sort of notion of skill acquisition in a way that I think a lot of people who are outside of the arts don't realize that how strong you become doing it, and are very, as a result, marketable out in the world looking for a job, regardless of whatever sort of area that's in. So it didn't talk about fiction because it's all kind of connected that way, but sort of that is the BFA experience. You really get a chance to work within a tight community of, I think, how big is our BFA now? How many students?
It's about 75, I
75, right? So that is a fraction of the size of the large lecture classes that many of you have gone through this semester and will go through next, right? That is the entire cohort of the BFA. So it's a wonderful community. Yeah.
I think it's worth sort of just to expand on that to talk about the instructor time, because in the 200 level courses, if you were sitting in a lecture hall, your instructor was maybe this tall, you know, from where you were sitting. And if you went up to the 3Os, you had TA-led sessions where the instructor came by every now and then. In 3-5s, you know, like I'm teaching one now, the instructor is bouncing back and forth between two workshops, trying to keep on top of what's going on. Whereas in the BFA, it's 12 students in a room with the instructor. You get one-on-one time with the instructor. You get somebody who's taking a personalized approach to your work. So you get much more face-to-face instructor time, which, and you'll find that there are instructors that you really gel with and who really understand what you're trying to do, and you can focus on larger projects. There's, you know, lots of advantages.
So just to clarify, so if there's 75 people in the whole program, how many students do you accept yearly?
How many students do we accept?
Yeah, about 25 per intake.
And average application size of how many?
What's the average application size, Brandy?
It's around 100 applications per year. Complete eligible applications.
So like, what about co-op? Like, what does the program offer opportunities like maybe Vancouver or like, you know, other cities?
Co-op. I don't know anything about co-op.
No, I don't
It's-
either, actually.
I think it's being sort of worked on. We're not, it's further along than the thesis question, definitely. I think it is some months, if not a year away, so that's something still to keep an eye on, but we don't have it in place right now to sort of give more details on.
How would it work if like I want to go on exchange?
How does it work if a student wants to go on exchange?
Yeah, so do you mean just time away from the program? Or,
Like,
Go global?
yeah, go global?
yeah,
Yes.
like, go global, like, would it take me longer, like, would I have to, like, kind of see when I come back?
Yeah, often that is the case. So you would probably extend your program by a bit. In some cases, some of your transfer courses would transfer, but it's hard to, there aren't a lot of courses like our courses, so often they transfer as like generic credit, and it would have to be looked at a little bit further.
We do have a bunch of students who go through the BFA, a select amount that go through that sort of thing.
And I guess another question about exchange. So like if I want to go third year, I have to apply now, and I have to apply like, I have to choose either fine arts or arts. Should I like apply for that assuming that I get into this or not?
But, sorry, are you a current UBC student?
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to apply to the BFA. You would just apply to creative writing, and then if you are admitted, we would, if you're not doing a double major, we would then transfer you to the BFA program. You don't have to apply to the BFA if you're a current UBC student.
I meant like for exchange.
Oh.
You have to choose whether you're applying to exchange under arts or fine arts.
Oh, I think that would be a question for global, actually, what their requirements are.
Any more
Show of hands, who's going to apply?
Great.
That's 25. Apologies to the people online who all put up their hands. Oh, that's terrific.
I think we should say something about that, which is that, you know, when we're reading applications, we really do want everyone. We wish we could accept everyone.
Yeah.
We want to say yes to every application. And if for whatever reason you don't get a yes, it is not a signal that you should not be a writer or that you should not continue to take creative writing classes. There are so many paths to being a writer, and you know, many students, there are students who don't get into the BFA and then end up applying to the MFA later on and end up doing a Master's of Fine Arts, or they finish a degree in something else and then work on a manuscript and publish a book on their own. There are lots of different ways to become a writer, and if you are a student who applies and doesn't get in, you know, you can always write to one of us, and we'd be glad to spend, you know, 20-30 minutes with you and talk about what your options are. I know that the minor program students created an amazing anthology of their work. I think they're still doing that every year, having a big reading. So I don't want you to feel like the BFA is your only option. You know, because as you can see, like from the numbers that Brandy's given you, like at a certain point it comes down to math, and it's kind of like an arbitrary line that we have to draw, and it's really just because of budget more than anything else. So yeah.
And to add something to that, in my current BFA class workshop that I'm teaching this term, I have one student who applied and got in on their, I believe it's the 4th try. So, you know, and they are performing really terrifically. In fact, they have a maturity in their work right now that is maybe not would have been there in their first application. So it just depends, right? Yeah. So 4th time lucky.
I'm just curious, if you were reapplying into the program, would it be like smart to just completely apply with a completely new portfolio, or reworking on the stuff that you had, because of course there's no feedback on like, well, this is why, like this is the problem you had. So I'm just curious, what would you say would be the best thing? I know it's very general, but
I think, have you ever looked at your work that you wrote a year ago? Not you personally, but like any of us right now know it's like, oh my gosh, I've traveled so far, right? So that's always something to take in mind when you're doing something like that. But if the subtext of your question is, can I apply with the same material? Yes, absolutely, right? If you want to, but it is, the bottom line is submit your best work. So if it's still holding, that thing you wrote last year or the year before, whenever, is still like, oh my gosh, this is still a piece I believe in, absolutely submit that work. But you might be surprised at how far you advance in that year if you were not accepted and you continue to take courses and generate material, or even if you didn't take courses and generate material. I think you'd be very surprised at how far you travel in that year. And it kind of goes back to the comment about when you're in a 200 level course and we see you in a 400 level course, or even in the upper 3s, the work is just tremendously different, right? You're all evolving without realizing it in front of, we get to see it in real time. Yeah.
Brandy, if I were to take courses part-time, which I definitely do want to do, how many years can I take to do the BFA?
Oh, that's a good question.
2 years would be a bit of a crunch for me. So.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be done in 2 years. Certainly there are students who do it part-time. I'm not sure what the requirements are. It would be a university requirement, not a department, not a creative writing requirement. Yeah, I would check with enrollment services.
If you are accepted into the program, would you recommend taking a gap year and reapplying in like the next round, or would it be smarter to go through the Bachelor of Arts program? And you can
So if you don't get into the BFA, is it smarter to just take a gap year off from school? I feel like this is maybe beyond our advising capability, but I can tell you that it's definitely worthwhile taking the creative writing courses that are available and open to general students. So on the 200 level, the 300 level, the 3.5 level, those are all excellent foundational courses. And usually students who have taken those courses have a bit of an advantage because they have the craft skills.
John, you teach fiction, you said?
Yep.
Nancy, what was your area?
I teach fiction as well. Yeah, but I'm the undergraduate chair. Yes, that's what I am. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Oh, there's one over here.
What's the selection process?
What's the selection process? That's a great question. Brandy, do you want to walk us through it? Or?
Sure, yeah. So once the eligible applications are submitted to the faculty readers, it goes through several readings. Faculty will assess and then rank them, and then we look at the spreadsheet basically and determine which are the top 25.
Yeah.
So it gets read
Yeah, minimum 3 times.
3 times. Your work gets read by 3 different people 3 times.
And we each give a numeric ranking based on the creative work. Then that gets tallied into an average, which creates basically a kind of ranked list of applications.
And there's usually discussions attached to it. as
Yeah,
well.
like if there's a discrepancy in rankings, like if one instructor has ranked an application a 9 and another instructor has ranked it a 2, there is a usually group discussion involving looking at that application more closely to figure out why that discrepancy exists. So it's not just arbitrary. There's a lot of thought that's put into it.
Also, we don't give 2s usually. No 2s.
No 2s.
not stuck with what you apply with.
The bare minimum is 4 genres,
Yeah,
right?
4. Yeah.
But a lot of the students in the BFA end up taking like more than 4, just because there's just so many cool courses to take, right?
What are you looking for in the portfolio pieces, in the sense that, like, if I submit something that is like groundbreaking and powerful, but it's really funny, like
Funny. Funny poems? Yeah, that's it.
Oh, now you're giving all the secrets.
I
away.
know, there's.
I think what we're looking for is we're not kind of assessing it against some sort of external bar. We're looking at what was your intention for the piece and how well you succeeded at that intention. So if we read the piece and see, it's a comic piece, then obviously we're going to look at things like, is it funny? What's the timing like? Is the pacing good? You know, all of those sort of things. So we're not going to mark it down if it's a comedic piece compared to a dramatic piece. Yeah.
Should we, oh, sorry.
Where are we?
There was one
There
here.
was
Or is this one here?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Would if you were going to submit like poetry for your portfolio, then would poetry faculty read it, or would it be like just randomly assigned to faculty?
That's a great question. So is a particular genre going to be read by a particular faculty member in that genre? Yes, we do try to assess based on our genre, what is that word? What we're good at?
Knowledge.
Knowledge.
Expertise.
Yeah, expertise.
Expertise, yeah.
But then, you know, we all read quite widely anyways, so it's sometimes read by a fiction writer, and you'll be all right in that.
I would say most of our faculty are multi-genre anyway. Like we all work in different creative areas, so yeah, there's never, I don't think there's much of a, most genres represented. Although I think you read all of the lyric, right?
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Is it better to generally show like breadth in your own capabilities as a writer? Like, is it better to have one fiction that's funny and then another that's dramatic, or is it purely on the? What if you have like multiple fictions that are the same feeling general? Is that a little bit worse, or?
For fiction, I don't know if you want to say something different for poetry, but for fiction, I can tell you should just submit your best work. I'm never reading and saying, oh, this doesn't show enough range. You know, I'm looking at the execution of the actual pieces you're submitting. Yeah. Well, is it the same for poetry?
I'm the same, yeah.
So earlier you said up to 3.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yes.
Up to 3 courses per semester. Is that a hard and fast up to, or like if you wanted to take 4, is that a possibility?
3 maximum.
3
per
maximum?
term, yeah.
Okay.
It gets quite demanding, so yeah.
It doesn't work, AJ, if you take more than 3. It's so overwhelming for the students, and they submit subpar work.
Also, we have a limited number of courses. And so we need to make sure that every student can meet their degree requirements every term. So there's a limited number of workshops. Yeah. There were some questions in the back. Yes, here.
This is like really, really specific, but I know that there is generally like a 20-page limit slash minimum, I don't know, like count
Yeah.
for your portfolio pieces. Say I was submitting poetry, it says on the website that each poem must have its own page.
Yeah.
What if I have a poem that's a little bit longer than a page and it has like 2 lines? Do I still have to move on to the next page in terms of formatting?
That's pretty nitpicky.
I don't know.
Sorry.
No, that's
No,
a
no,
good
no.
question. That's what I mean. Yeah.
I think he's saying it would be nitpicky of us
Yeah.
to penalize you for that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Feel
We're
like-
we're not like eliminating portfolios if they're 1 page over.
No.
Yeah. Because you're okay. Yeah.
So kind of going off the previous question, you're looking for writing that tries to do what it sets out to do best. So if you're trying to write a complete piece, you want to see how close to that you want to get. If you're writing, say, like a sci-fi piece, then are you looking for how sci-fi it is? Like what intention do we have to write with a piece, other than just making it the best?
Yeah, if you're writing a sci-fi piece, I mean, what I would look at is like, well, what is the piece about? Like, is is it a character struggling with some kind of internal problem while tackling some kind of external problem? You know, like what is the piece itself setting out to do? What kind of story is it? That's what I'm looking at, and how strong is the execution? So in any piece of fiction, regardless of genre, we're looking at character depth. You know, we're looking for concrete sensory detail, a sense of falling into the work and losing yourself in it as a reader. You know, that's what I'm reading for. I want to forget that I'm reading applications and feel like I've disappeared into a fictional world with this character, and I'm on the journey with them. That's what I'm looking for.
How many of you, just show of hands, are already in a 200 or have taken a creative writing course already? Good.
Yes.
And in those classes, you learned something about craft and the way sentences work and what character is and the like lyric poetry and attention and all those things, right? Just bring that to your work.
Yeah.
All of the craft that you have had talked at you about and you've tried to work on in your assignments and in the writing practice that you've done in those classes, bring your attention back to those things. Sentence structure, concrete sensory detail, and what makes your voice distinct from other people in this room. What are you interested in? How do you bring that to the page? That is what we really want to see. And sometimes unexpected or surprising insights are what we're also looking for, you know?
And I've just thought of a better answer to your question, which is, I think the defining principle here is that if you're going to submit a sci-fi piece, we're not going to look at it and say, oh, it's not a literary fiction, or oh, it's not this kind of fiction. We're going to look at it as sci-fi and say, okay, is this great sci-fi? Is this great work? Do you see what I mean? Because I think that's what the question was over here, is like, is a comedic piece worth less than a dramatic piece? Absolutely not. Is a sci-fi piece worth less than any other genre? No, absolutely not.
So you're just looking at, does it accomplish what it's supposed to accomplish with that type of?
Yes.
And would you like us to identify the tone, like say this is supposed to be a comedic piece, this is supposed to be, you'll figure that out?
We'll figure that out. We should be able to figure that out.
If you can't, then we've done something wrong.
Yeah.
So for a fiction novel excerpt of 20 pages, should I also include a little synopsis at the beginning, or
It's
have the
yeah. For a novel excerpt, can you include a synopsis? I think it's a good idea. A brief synopsis for sure. Yeah. We'll go brief first.
What do you mean by speculative fiction?
Where's Andrew Gray when you need him? What do we mean by speculative fiction? Andrew Gray is our resident spec fiction expert, but essentially it's an umbrella term for sci-fi, fantasy, steampunk, yeah, and anything with a speculative world, outside of a realist world.
What about pieces that blend genres together in terms of like,
Is the question like what genre would you submit it under?
Well, like, do you need to submit under a certain genre? Like, if you're supposed to only submit 2 genres, then and you're using something that's from multiple genres, then what's the complication there? You have to submit something else that's also from multiple genres. I don't know.
I think you have to select which genre you want to submit it under.
So you label it under one thing.
Yeah,
Label.
because that helps us direct it to the right reader. So let's say you've got work that is part nonfiction, part poetry.
Right.
What you would have to decide is, you know, do I want it read as poetry primarily, or do I want it read as nonfiction primarily? Yeah.
Just at this point.
At this point, once you're in the program,
Then you're free. Hi.
So quick question, I am a creative writing minor at the time, so do I still have to do the application process, or do I just declare? So I have to do the application.
Yeah, you do have to apply.
Yeah.
Minors have to apply.
Sorry. Great questions.
yeah. Any other questions?
Just one more sort of comment on the unease I always sense around like what to submit for a portfolio, and that is simply just write the stuff that really moves you and that's like in your wheelhouse that you're excited about, that sort of thing, not what you think we want to read, right? If you try to write stuff that you think we want to read and that will be the best chance to get in, you're probably going to miss the mark. We can really we really sense when people are writing from something they're really passionate about. It shows up in the language, in the liveliness of the sentences, the enthusiasm of the characters, whatever genre you're working in. Just write the stuff you really want to write, guys, and submit your finest work. It's really about that.
Sorry for asking so many questions.
Oh, that's what we're here for.
Excellent.
Oh, no.
So moving on from the genres themselves onto the cover letter. I know it says write it in your voice. How much in your voice would you say? Like, does it have to have some
Is this
sort
your
of formality
voice?
to it?
This voice right here that you have right now, that's good.
So okay.
Just
maybe
dial that up even.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Awesome. So it doesn't really need to have like formality. It's just,
Well, be nice. Don't be like, yo.
don't be like.
I'm super
don't
into
be
writing.
Like, yo, dog, BRB. I just gotta, YouTube.
It's still professional.
Okay,
It's still a professional document.
But I also don't want to panic anyone else into thinking like you have to develop some kind of big character voice.
No,
in order to
sorry,
write your letter.
yeah,
You
sorry.
can just write a regular letter too. That's totally fine. But I do think one thing that's worth mentioning in the cover letter, or that we didn't talk about in terms of the cover letter, is that if you feel like us understanding your influences would help bring a context to the work that you're submitting, you can also include that as well. Oops. We'll go with you first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I understand the question about the letter. Thanks for asking that. Just put it in regular professional language. But I grew up hearing rustic dialect from a good portion of my family. So I use that in poetry mostly for humor effect. Is that okay for my portfolio piece to be told in, this rustic kind of alternative dialect?
Is that what if that's what you love and
Yeah, I
feel
use it all
inspired
the
by,
time.
yeah.
It's just like it gives it texture and it's kind of specificity.
Yeah.
But in the letter, obviously, just professional.
Oh, I think you were next, then we'll come to you.
I completely forget my question.
You can think on it. We'll come up here.
For the novel excerpt, you said you wanted a summary at the beginning. Do you want like a conclusion at the end, or can we leave it as a cliffhanger?
You can leave it as a cliffhanger. We're basically looking at the execution of the excerpt itself, and I think the context at the beginning will just be to help the reader understand what's going to happen in the excerpt itself. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Did you remember? Okay.
Is there any particular topics or things that you want us specifically to avoid in any of the things you submit?
Oh. Have we ever addressed that? I don't know.
Because I know in some of the classes they say like don't talk about this or whatever.
Yeah, and in the classes we often say things like don't talk about school shootings because we don't want to have to go to the dean's office with you. So, I think that I don't know that I've ever come across anything in the portfolios that has been an issue. No?
I mean, I guess it's a great question. Maybe if you're considering a certain subject that you're very unsure about, kick it to Brandy and she'd be able to sort of suss it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's,
Will the people who are reading our portfolio pieces also be reading our cover letter? And will all of them be reading it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. For the cover letter and the portfolio pieces are circulated as one package. Yeah.
If you're submitting an excerpt from like a novel or a longer screenplay, does your like synopsis count towards your page on it?
No. Correct?
I'm sorry.
If you're submitting an excerpt and you need to provide a synopsis, will that synopsis count towards your page limit?
That's a good question. Let me check the guidelines.
I would say no. As long as
Feels
you're,
like
yeah.
Yeah, I would say probably not.
Yeah. In terms of the synopsis, though, I would say be very conservative. Like, just provide enough that it contextualizes what you're handing in. Don't send a 20-page novel synopsis with a 20-page excerpt.
We'll know it was you.
More for Sharita.
Yeah.
I talked to you earlier today.
Yeah.
Can I submit prose poetry for the poetry genre?
Yes,
Even
you
though
are
it may
welcome
be
to.
Long and sprawling, that would be okay?
There's a question here about submitting prose poetry as part of a poetry kind of application, if that's your genre. Yes, absolutely.
That's what I'd love to work with.
Yep.
Can it
great question.
That's a great question. In order for it to be read by our faculty, it does have to be in English, but if you want to provide, I think we have had submissions where it's been facing pages, so written in the original language and translated, so you can provide a translation of your own work if you like. In which case, only the creative work would, only the translation would count for your page count, yeah. Anything else? Do we want to maybe wrap up and just we'll hang around?
Yeah, I think we're about at time. So I put some contact information on the board. You can reach out to me anytime if you have any further questions. And yeah, to just mingle for a little bit.
Yes, we'll hang around here. If you have additional questions that you don't want to necessarily ask in front of everybody, you can feel free to come on up and talk to us individually.
Good luck.
Mingle with each other.
Good luck.
Yes, good luck. Good luck.
Bye.
Hi. I feel so nervous.